Ever seen those Montessori sand writing trays and thought you needed one? But also thought you could totally make one too? Well, that's exactly what we did. Keep watching to see how we did it. My hubby and I are serial DIYers and prefer to utilize what we already have to make things. As we do a lot of DIY wood projects, we have scrap wood laying around. As a way to DIY sustainably, we used some scrap poplar wood to make a DIY sand writing tray for our little one. We didn't use precise measurements on our first tray, as we were just using a scrap piece of poplar wood. It ended up being about 15 inches by 7.5 inches wide. We preferred a longer tray than you typically see, so that our child could have lots of room to write out words or letters. Now, unless you buy a nice finished hardwood board you know is already square and planed, you'll want to ensure it's straight and flat. If you use rough lumber, or even if it's an S3S lumber, you may want to start by flattening your board and squaring it up on the table saw. We ran our scrap pieces through a planer to ensure they were flat. No worries if you don't have a planer and you're just trying to make this. Just pick a piece of wood that doesn't appear to have major warps or twists. We then created straight edges using the table saw. Start by cross-cutting your boards to their final length and then set the saw's fence to the desired dimension to rip your final width. For the best results, make sure you rip both sides of the board. This also eliminates any tear out from the cross-cutting. Quick tip learned from experience. Sometimes table saw fences aren't square, especially older ones like ours. Make sure to double check the fence by using a speed square to confirm it's square before you start.
Next, it was time to cut the card groove or slot for this writing tray. On the table saw, we cut a 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch wide groove, approximately 3/8 of an inch deep. We chose this depth as it was half the depth of the board. Also, we chose to angle the blade 15 degrees so it better held the cards. To make this type of cut, we first set our blade to our desired angle and then raised it to our desired height. We just eyeballed it by setting the board next to the blade and adjusting it until it was about half the height of the board. Then, we took the boards and cut a groove along the long side of each board. We shifted the table saw fence just a hair and ran them through one more time. We were using an 1/8 inch wide saw blade, so 2 passes was plenty wide enough to hold typical cards. If you plan to use really thick cards, then you may want to measure the cards and consider cutting a larger groove by taking a few more passes on the table saw.
Next, it was template time. Prior to routing the pocket part where the sand will sit, we needed to secure the wood piece for safety. There are a variety of ways to attach it to the workbench: a vise, a dog hole clamp, double-sided tape, or super glue and painter's tape will work fine too. The first time we did this, we used super glue with an accelerator and painter's tape to adhere it to our flipping workbench. We put down a couple strips of tape on both the workbench and the back of the tray board, added super glue to the tape on the workbench, and then sprayed the accelerator on the tape on the back of the board. We originally used the same trick to secure the template strips to our board, but with so little material support, this wasn't the most secure route. This time we decided to just screw our template strips down into our sacrificial benchtop. This holds our template in place and works as a clamp to hold our piece into place as well. If you don't have a sacrificial benchtop, then you can throw down a slab of plywood and screw it to that instead.
We installed a templating bit into the router and set the height for the first pass. Using the template in the router, we routed out the pocket. This process can be slow, but taking your time to avoid any bobbles saves you having to sand it out later. I know this from experience, as I definitely tried to go too fast at one point, and it left me with a divot that I had to work hard to sand out afterwards. Lastly, repeat the process with a second pass at the final depth. We decided to go about 3/8 of an inch deep again so that we would be half the thickness of the board. I know watching routing is super exciting, but maybe not. It's just part of the process. We love sharing with others in as much detail as we can. That's why we have this channel, as well as our website. It has detailed step-by-step blog posts for our more complex builds. We have DIY plans with material lists, assembly and part drawings that lay everything out for you. I'll be honest, we do this out of a love for DIY, and we want others to find that joy and spark from making something with their own hands, instead of it being delivered in a box.
Sanding time! With any wood project, you need to sand it smooth and remove any sharp edges. So we started with 80 grit sandpaper going over the entire tray, then repeated with 120 grit and 180 grit sandpaper. You always want to go from lower number sandpaper, as it's rougher, to higher number sandpaper, as it's smoother. We love using a random orbital sander and sanding disc to make this a really quick process. After sanding to 120 grit, we rounded over the corners before finishing with 180 grit. We set up the router table with a 1/8 inch roundover bit to round over all the edges, then ran every side through the router to ensure there were no sharp edges. It also gave a nice, high-quality look to the final product. This step is totally optional if you don't have a router table with a roundover bit or don't want to round off the edges of the tray. We do recommend rounding the edges some by hand with sandpaper if you don't do this. That way there are no sharp edges for the child playing with it. The last thing you want are splinters in those little fingers.
Before applying the finish, we want to clean the wood with mineral spirits. This helps to remove excess dust and brings out the grain of the wood. It also highlights any scratches that we may have missed while sanding. You can see here that we missed a pretty large scratch from when we used a rasp in this pocket. This gave us a chance to sand the scratches out so that they don't show up in the finished product. Mineral spirits can take more than a day to dry, so it helps if you set a fan up to blow across the pieces to help them dry more quickly and evenly. After some quick calculations that ultimately turned out to be wrong, we were ready to apply some finish. While this step could be optional, we highly recommend finishing the writing trays with some protective finish. This way, dirty little fingers don't stain it, and the finish will make the wood more durable and long-lasting. You can use whatever your preferred finish is, whether it's stain, polyurethane, mineral oil, etc. We used Rubio Monocoat's Oil Plus 2C in a pure color. It warms the wood slightly and keeps the color fairly similar to the raw poplar boards we used. We love the Rubio Monocoat finish for all of our wood projects. It's a hard wax oil that's super easy to apply, requiring only one coat, and it comes in a ton of colors. It also has 0% VOC, which means that it doesn't off-gas and harm the air that we're breathing. We did a color test of 6 different colors on 7 different species of woods, as well as a product review if you ever want to know more. We'll leave a link to the blog article in the description below this video.
After the finish was dry, the writing tray was complete, and it's time to fill it up and set up for some fun and learning. If you have sand, you can totally fill it with that. We didn't have any sand on hand, and like we mentioned at the beginning, we like to utilize what we have. So, we used sugar. This makes great sand, and we felt better as we wouldn't panic if some of it was consumed by the toddler. The toddler loves writing letters, numbers, and words in the tray. Now, if you got this far, you might be like, awesome! I'm going to make this to help my kid practice with writing. Well, guess what? It doesn't just have to be for writing. We've set it up for matching games or using stamps to make patterns too. You can even hide cards or flat objects below the sand, give a kid a brush, and then they can brush away the sand to discover items. It's been a fun, versatile toy to make learning and discovery exciting and playful. Lastly, we'd recommend not leaving the sand just in the tray when you store it, especially if you use sugar like us. That's just asking for a mess or for bugs. We reuse an old pesto jar to pour our sugar into and seal it tight until the next playtime. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of our future videos, we'd appreciate it if you took a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Have you ever made toys for a kid? Let us know what you made in the comments below. If you like this tiny project, you're going to love seeing our biggest project to date. Click that video to check it out. Thanks for watching!